Well, we want to continue today's theme, right? Long-term investing trends. Arwen Becker is with us, owner of Becker Retirement Group. Arwen, great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you.
Volatile year for markets. And now the question is, what people are doing for the long term. We just had a great conversation about 401ks versus Roth IRAs. So what are your thoughts here?
Well, I really look at it this way. There's kind of like 4 keys and of these pieces that we need to take a look at. But as I go back and I look at the time I spent working in wildlife rehabilitation, my late years in my teens and into my early 20s, I actually ran a wildlife rehabilitation center. I've raised every wild animal known to man in the state of Washington: bats, hawks, owls, eagles, everything. But there was a cougar that we had as a permanent residence when I was there. Her name was Sasha. And I was one of very few people, 3 people, who could go into her enclosure and work with her, clean it. And one of the things we used to do was use this big rope toy, like you would with a Rottweiler, and play tug of war. It was awesome. But one day I had a gal ask me if she could take some pictures. So I brought her in. It was about 3 years into my relationship with Sasha, never had any issues. And the moment the door closed behind me, Sasha jumped down off of her perch, 110 pounds, wrapped her body around my hips, bit both sides of my chest, both of my legs, and I had this huge gash on my hands from trying to basically get her face off my body. Lady ran out screaming, didn't help me out, so I was kind of left to do it myself. But when I think back on that day, I went in there, it was 85 degrees outside. I was wearing jeans, I was wearing a long sleeve t-shirt, and I was wearing one of those sweet denim jackets we used to wear in the 80s that had denim and wool and things of that nature. She had never attacked me, but I was always prepared. And that's what we're facing right now. We don't know when things are going to happen. We are kind of aware they probably are at some point, but the point is you have to be prepared. So first of all, you have to know, where in the world are you? When you go to the mall and you're trying to find the Sunglass Hut, you find the directory and you find accessories and you say Sunglass Hut's at $242. You don't just wander aimlessly in the mall, right? You have to find that circle that says you are here. So you first have to figure out, where in your financial picture are you? How do all these pieces, not just your investments, but all the pieces that make up your financial picture, what are they doing? Then starting to look more closely at risk. So having somebody walk you through, especially if you're part of a couple, walk you through what your risk tolerance is and really your emotional capacity to handle it. That's a really important point. Then you start to personalize the plan to fit that, because a lot of people talk to their neighbor or their coworker or their sister, and they're telling them advice as to what they think they should be doing about their retirement. But everybody's situation is unique. A lot of the investments and the tools and the planning is very much the same, but everybody has different situation. So making sure it's personalized. And then finally, you've got to tweak it. It's not about making massive changes over time. It's about making just small little tweaks along the way. And that's why you have to have an advisor who is meeting with you at least annually. And if your advisor has not met with you during this time, I would seriously consider talking to somebody else, because this is a very important time to take a look at, what are my long-term goals? Have I planned appropriately? And really, where do I go from here? Those are the things that come, bring it all together. And you know what? That day when I was in that enclosure, thank God I was prepared, because that could have been much more severe if I wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I like that analogy, right? First of all, big cats seem to be very popular always, but especially now with the Netflix Tiger King. And, and they can be so sweet. You have wonderful relationships with them. And we've seen that. And, I've enjoyed your story very much. But sometimes the elements change, or, there's that one day you didn't expect. And that's a great analogy. So when we talk about risk tolerance, people need to think about a few things. We talk about what, first of all, are you willing to lose 10%, 20%, 50%? What kind of investor are you? Also, what is your income, right? I mean, that would also lead you to say how much risk you're willing to take, your age. Those things would come into play as well. And then you also mentioned tweaking your portfolio. So how often would you tweak or adjust your portfolio? Once you get down to what it is that you really are interested in investing in, how often would you revisit your portfolio with your broker or an expert, or how often do you do that?
At the very minimum, you should be looking at it yearly just to see if things change, because they do. I mean, we have great intentions and we think that, we're never going to want a second home in Arizona or even move to Arizona. I mean, we live in Seattle, so a lot of our clients want to move to Arizona, but we don't necessarily think that. And then something changes. So it's certainly revisiting it along the way and just making those small little changes that might be necessary to making sure that this long-term picture that we've had out there, that we're still kind of readjusting to get ourselves there. And, in big times like these, you need to be talking to your advisor. You need to revisit the plan. It doesn't necessarily mean things are going to change.
You here. I only have a few seconds left, but I just, emotion is so key. And the emotion should be put aside, right?
It really should be. Yeah, absolutely. You put together a plan. All this stuff is going on the outside, and you come back and you go, okay, what was the plan? Remind me of what the plan was, and what do we need to do to get back on track? That's exactly what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful to see you. We always enjoy when you're on. I'm sure you have a lot of people calling in and asking you a lot of questions during this time, especially since that March 23rd low and what kind of comeback we're having. It's tough to plan, but I'm sure you're giving them some great advice.
That's what we're here for.
Arwen Becker, wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
too.
much. A great conversation. Arwen Becker, owner of Becker Retirement Group. And thank you for joining me here on Market Overtime. Remember, join us every single weekday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, as we help you to plan your long-term investment portfolio. I'm Nicole Petallides. Have a great, safe night, everyone. And I'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, for the Watch List on the TD Ameritrade Network.